Okay, let's dive right in. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to go on a journey into the invisible today, exploring the microscopic world that forms the absolute foundation of all living things. Whether we're talking about a single tiny bacterium or a highly complex human being like you, the entire blueprint for life starts right here with the cell. To really grasp the mind-boggling scale we're dealing with today, just think about a standard pinhead. A typical human red blood cell is about 8 millionths of a meter across. What does that actually mean? Well, it means roughly 250 of your red blood cells could fit side by side entirely on the head of a single pin. We are talking about structures so unimaginably tiny that they entirely escape our naked eye. So, here is our quick roadmap for today. We've got 1. The building blocks. 2. Seeing the invisible. 3. Light versus electron microscopes. 4. The unified cell theory. And finally, 5. Cells saving lives.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the building blocks.
To understand the micro, we're actually going to start by zooming out just a bit to look at how the microscopic world builds the macroscopic world we interact with every day. Think of this biological hierarchy exactly like building a city. It all starts with individual bricks. Those are your cells. But, bricks don't just work alone. Several cells group together to form walls, or in biology, tissues. Then those tissues combine to build specialized structures like a school or a hospital. These are your organs, like your stomach or your heart. Moving up, these organs form interconnected systems, kind of like a city's plumbing or transit grid. And finally, all those systems function seamlessly together to form the entire bustling metropolis. An organism, like you or me. It's honestly a perfect architectural marvel.
Moving on to Section 2, Seeing the Invisible.
Because we obviously can't see these fundamental units with our bare eyes, scientists had to invent a brilliant optical solution to peer into this world, the microscope. But when we talk about microscopes, we really need to understand 2 absolutely crucial concepts. Making something look bigger, which is magnification, isn't quite enough. Think about zooming way in on a low-quality digital photo on your phone. It just becomes a giant, blurry, pixelated mess, right? To actually see detail, you need high resolving power. Resolving power is the microscope's ability to show 2 adjacent structures as distinctly separate things, rather than just one big, blurry blob.
And here's this super weird quirk about how traditional microscopes work. They create this fascinating optical illusion. Because they use 2 sets of curved lenses to bend and focus the light, the image you see is completely inverted. It's flipped upside down and backward. This means if you're looking through the eyepiece and you physically push the glass slide to the left, the specimen will actually dart to the right. It takes biology students a solid bit of practice to get the hang of this reverse navigation.
All right, Section 3, Light versus electron microscopes. So let's examine the 2 primary tools biologists actually use today to peer into this hidden world, and why you might pick one over the other. First, we have light microscopes, the trusted standard in high school and college labs. They are fantastic for viewing living, swimming organisms, and they top out at about 1,000 times magnification. But because cells are mostly transparent, we often have to dye them with chemical stains to see anything, which unfortunately usually kills them. Then we have electron microscopes. Instead of light, these bad boys shoot beams of actual electrons, unlocking an absolutely incredible 100,000 times magnification. The trade-off? They require a complete vacuum to operate, meaning you can never, ever view a living, moving cell with an electron microscope.
Even within the realm of electron microscopes, we have specialized tools for different jobs. Scanning electron microscopes, or SEMs, sweep an electron beam back and forth across the outside of a cell. Think of it like taking a highly detailed 3D drone scan of the exterior of a house. On the other hand, transmission electron microscopes, or TEMs, fire the beam entirely through the cell. This is basically like looking at the internal blueprint or an X-ray of that house, allowing us to map out all the intricate internal structures hidden inside.
I absolutely love this analogy right from the source text. It perfectly explains that neither the light microscope nor the electron microscope is inherently better than the other. I mean, you wouldn't use a fork to eat soup, right? If you want to watch a tiny organism swim around, use the light microscope. If you want to map the incredibly intricate folds of its internal organs, use the electron microscope. They're simply different tools shaped for entirely different scientific jobs.
Which brings us to Section 4, the unified cell theory. Armed with these magnifying tools we just talked about, let's trace the historical timeline that completely revolutionized biology. It took centuries of cumulative scientific effort to get to our modern understanding. We start way back in 1665 with experimental scientist Robert Hooke. He's looking at dead, box-like cork tissue and actually gives us the word cell. Then, by the 1670s, Dutch lenscrafter Antony van Leeuwenhoek was using his own superior lenses to discover living microscopic bacteria, which he charmingly called animalcules. Fast forward a century and a half to the 1830s, and we arrive at a massive breakthrough. By comparing notes on plant and animal tissues, botanist Matthias Schleiden and zoologist Theodor Schwann finally put all the puzzle pieces together.
Their combined work resulted in the unified cell theory. It relies on three fundamental pillars. Number one or more cells comprise all living things. Number two, the cell is the most basic unit of life. And number three, new cells arise only from existing cells. These three simple rules form the absolute bedrock of modern biological science. They prove that every single living thing on Earth is united by the exact same cellular architecture.
And finally, Section 5. Cells saving lives.
Let's bring this out of the history books and look at how studying cells literally saves human lives today in the real world. Imagine a medical career where your entire job is to peer through a microscope, acting as a detective hunting for microscopic clues to save lives. This is exactly what a cytotechnologist does. They examine cellular specimens, like a pap smear, for instance. Because they are meticulously trained to know exactly what a healthy, normal cell is supposed to look like, they serve as the crucial first line of defense. They can instantly spot the microscopic warning signs of infections or developing cancers long before a patient ever feels any symptoms.
For instance, when hunting for the human papillomavirus, or HPV, cytotechnologists are looking for very specific shape changes. An infected cell will appear distinctly swollen. It's visibly larger than the healthy cells around it. Plus, it will frequently display two dark nuclei, those are the control centers of the cell, instead of the standard one. By catching these incredibly tiny, otherwise totally invisible cellular changes, cytotechnologists ensure patients begin life-saving treatments immediately. This massively increases their chances of a full recovery.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a rather profound thought. We learned that the unified cell theory states that every new cell arises from an existing cell. So, when you look in the mirror later today, consider the unbroken, microscopic chain of cellular division that connects the very first single fertilized cell you ever were entirely through continuous division to the trillions of specialized cells making up your living, breathing body right now. It is a spectacular biological chain reaction. How will you look at yourself and the microscopic building blocks of life differently today? Thank you so much for joining me. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you in the next one.